And time to take a look at what's been making headlines across the globe. And today that duty is being very well done by a certain Alison Sargent, who joins me in the studio today. And you're going to start in India with reaction to, of course, Narendra Modi's stunning election victory.
That's right, Annette. An even bigger victory than when he was first elected back in 2014. Now, a lot of people in India refer to Narendra Modi with the nickname Namo, and the Hindustan Times plays on that nickname with their headline here. You can see they say it's Modi's NaMoMent. Meanwhile, the Indian Express, another paper, hails Modi 2.024 on their front page today. They point out that Modi is the first prime minister since Indira Gandhi to return for a second mandate with a majority. And finally, the Times of India has a Hindi headline on their front page today. It means the Watchman's miracle. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. The Watchman is another one of Modi's nicknames, one that the opposition ended up using to attack him during the campaign. The paper, though, is using it here to tout Modi's victory. The Times of India says that the opposition's attempts to smear Modi as corrupt is one of the failed strategies, actually, that led to the opposition's loss in these elections.
Now, the Indian press has more or less been expressing enthusiasm for his victory, but what about the international media?
The international media is very concerned about the BJP's Hindu nationalist rhetoric. The Financial Times calls Modi's victory a landslide that clears the way for the BJP's new reform drive, and that, according to the paper, is where Modi needs to put his focus, not in stoking communal tensions, which they accuse him of doing in their editorial today. Meanwhile, Quartz India focuses on one candidate from Modi's party who has been particularly divisive. This is Pragya Thakur. She made headlines last week for calling the man who killed Mahatma Gandhi a patriot. Quartz sees her victory in particular as an example of the strident Hindu nationalism of the BJP, something that they say is only going to get worse.
Now, leaving India and heading to neighbouring Nepal, where newspapers, I have to read this out very slowly, are decrying traffic jams on Mount Everest.
That's right, and at traffic jams of people climbing Mount Everest. And it actually, it sounds quite ridiculous, but it's actually something that's very serious because several climbers died this week from exhaustion as they were waiting to get to the top. You can see there's this incredible picture of the scene at the mountain's summit on Wednesday. This was taken by a climber named Nirmal Purja. He posted it to Twitter, and it has gone somewhat viral in the media.
It looks like the queue for the Eiffel Tower.
I know, it looks like almost worse than that, right? An all single file. I'm surprised no one fell also. The Kathmandu Post reports that 250 people were vying to get to the top of the mountain on Wednesday when this photo was taken, and the paper sounds rather fed up. They say this isn't the first time people have died due to these long wait times at the top of Mount Everest. There's just a small window to climb the mountain every year due to the weather, and there's no quota system to limit the number of climbers, so it does get incredibly crowded. One tourism official told the paper that they really need to discuss the problem and then hopefully, I would imagine, act on it.
Yes, soon rather than later, that's for sure. Okay, back to France now, where, of course, the word about the president of the Paris Saint-Germain football club who's been charged with corruption.
That's right. He's suspected of trying to buy the opportunity for Qatar to host the World Athletics Championships back in 2017. Qatar ultimately lost that bid, but they will be hosting this year's competition. Aujourd'hui en France writes that Nasser Al-Khelaifi is caught up in scandal, and in their editorial, the paper writes that this really comes at the end of a rough season for the Paris Saint-Germain football club. They got knocked out of the Champions League. They haven't been doing so well. The paper says, even though this scandal has nothing to do with the PSG, with how they're playing the football team, well, it is a blow to PSG's Qatari investors. With all that money, they try and buy competitions, but they could be buying the PSG's games. That's what one commentator is saying in this cartoon. The other one agrees with him. They say the PSG is clearly being mismanaged.
And heading across the Atlantic, Alison, and the Trump administration has apparently delayed the release of a new $20 bill featuring the anti-slavery activist Harriet Tubman.
That's right. Harriet Tubman, an icon of the anti-slavery movement, she was supposed to replace the former president Andrew Jackson, who was himself a slave owner, on the $20 bill. So a very stark contrast between these two figures. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin delayed the change, reportedly because he didn't want President Trump to cause a stir or by canceling it altogether. Well, one designer from New York has taken things into his own hands by creating the stamp of Harriet Tubman that you see on this $20 bill behind me, something that you can add on to alter existing $20 bills. He's already begun stamping thousands of the bills and encourages other people to do the same. He's selling these stamps on Etsy, but he's actually run out because after the news that they were delaying the release of this bill, people, I guess, rushed to buy them. I couldn't find a price listing on the website, but I'm guessing that they are not too expensive, possibly even getting given away for free.
Right, and finally, it's Friday. It's the last day of the working week. And one last story from you, Alison. A mysterious break-in in Boston where somebody broke into a person's house but didn't take anything.
That's right, Annette. Not only did they not take anything, they actually cleaned the house, and very professionally, it has to be said. If you take a look at what they did to the toilet paper, this person seems to have training. They folded it into origami roses, which makes me suspect that maybe they had done previous work at a hotel. I also think it could have been one of the man's parents, because I can't imagine who else would want to break into someone's house just to clean. The man, anyway, said that he found it weird and creepy and did decide to go to the police about it. But he also says that he decided to keep those roses as a souvenir.
Oh, look, if I was him, I would be very grateful indeed if somebody wants to come into my apartment and clean it for me. Thank you for that, Alison. And if you want to take a look at the stories that we've been talking about, you can, of course, head to our website, that being france24.com.